A long, long time ago, in the highlands of Ethiopia, lived a curious and kind young boy named Kaldi. Kaldi was a goat herder, just like his father and his grandfather before him. He knew every one of his goats by name and loved them as if they were his own family. Every single morning, as the sun painted the sky with shades of orange and gold, Kaldi would lead his flock up the steep, rocky paths of the mountains to find fresh grass and leaves for them to eat. It was a long and tiring journey. By the time the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the land, Kaldi, his friends, and all the goats would stumble back into the village, completely exhausted. Their legs ached, their eyelids were heavy, and all they could think about was sleep. One particular day, Kaldi decided to try a new pasture on a distant mountain, one on the other side of his village. The grass is always greener on the other side, the elders sometimes said, and Kaldi was hopeful. On the way, they passed a small monastery built into the side of a cliff. A kind monk, named Abba Yosef, was sitting outside, rubbing his tired eyes. He was happy to see Kaldi and his friends, for he had been struggling to stay awake during his afternoon prayers. "The days are long, and my spirit is willing, but my eyes are heavy," the monk confessed with a gentle smile. They chatted for a short while before Kaldi and his friends continued on their way, promising to stop by on their return. After hours of walking, they finally reached the lush, green slope. While the boys rested and ate their lunch of bread and figs, the goats happily scattered to graze. But when Kaldi stood up to gather them for the journey home, his heart sank. The goats were gone. "Baki! Lulu! Shamo!" he called out, but only the echo of his own voice answered. He and his friends searched frantically behind every rock and every tree. The sun was dipping lower, and a knot of worry tightened in Kaldi's stomach. Where could they have gone? Just as fear was beginning to truly set in, Kaldi heard a strange sound coming from a dense thicket of bushes. It wasn't the usual gentle bleating of his goats. It was a chorus of energetic, happy bleats, mixed with the sound of skittering hooves on stone. He pushed his way through the branches, his heart pounding. What he saw was the most astonishing sight of his life. His entire flock was there, but they were not calmly chewing grass. They were leaping, prancing, and dancing around as if they were kids again. Their usual tiredness had vanished, replaced by an incredible, boundless energy. Kaldi let out a huge sigh of relief, but his curiosity was now even greater than his fear had been. Why were his goats behaving this way? Tired from his long search, Kaldi sat down under the shade of a large wanza tree to wait for the goats to calm down. But they didn't calm down. He watched them closely. His eyes followed his lead goat, Baki, as she nudged her way towards a small bushy plant with dark, shiny green leaves. She began to nibble on the bright red berries that grew in small clusters on its branches. No sooner had she eaten a few than she gave a joyful leap and started dancing again. Kaldi's eyes widened. Could it be the berries? He wondered. He crawled over to the bush and picked one of the red beans. It was firm and smooth. He smelled it. It had a faint, earthy scent. Gathering all his courage, Kaldi put the bean in his mouth and bit down. It was tough and bitter, but he chewed it. At first, he felt nothing. Then, a strange thing happened. A wave of warmth spread through his body. The tiredness that had been clinging to his bones like a heavy cloak seemed to melt away. His mind, which had been foggy with worry, suddenly felt clear and sharp. He felt more awake and alive than he had ever felt before. He jumped to his feet, feeling like he could run all the way back to the village without stopping. He knew he had discovered something miraculous. Carefully, he filled the leather pouch he carried at his waist with the magical red beans. On the journey home, his mind raced with excitement. He remembered the tired monk, Abba Yosef, and how he struggled to stay awake for his prayers. Kaldi felt a pull to share his discovery. He stopped at the monastery and found Abba Yosef, who was looking even sleepier than before. "Abba, I have found something incredible," Kaldi exclaimed, pouring the red beans into the monk's hand. He told him the story of the dancing goats and his own experience. Abba Yosef was a wise man, skeptical of magic, but he trusted Kaldi's honest heart. "A bean that chases away sleep? This we must test," he said thoughtfully. He had an idea. "Perhaps we can make a drink from them." Together, they crushed the beans with a stone into a coarse powder. Abba Yosef was just about to prepare his evening cup of hot water with herbs. He stirred the dark powder into the boiling water over his fire. The water turned a deep, rich brown, and a wonderful, inviting aroma filled the small hut. After it had cooled slightly, the monk lifted the cup to his lips and took a cautious sip. His eyes, which had been half closed with fatigue, flew open in amazement. He took another, longer sip. "My boy," he cried, his voice full of wonder, "the weariness is gone. My mind is clear, and I feel as though I could pray until morning. This is not magic. It is a blessing. Thank you so much." Filled with joy, Kaldi returned home. He told his family all about his adventure. Following Abba Yosef's advice, he learned that drying the beans in the sun first made them easier to crush and improved their flavor. He prepared more of the powder and shared it with all the monks in the village monastery. The news spread like wildfire. The monks, who spent long hours in prayer and study, found the drink to be a divine gift. They could now maintain their devotions with alert and joyful hearts, long into the night. They were endlessly grateful for Kaldi's amazing discovery. Soon, Kaldi and the monks knew this was a gift for the entire village. They presented the discovery to the village elders. Everyone wanted to try the energizing bean drink. The villagers worked together to harvest the red beans, dry them, and crush them into powder. Whenever they felt tired or needed strength for a long task, they would enjoy a cup of the warm, fragrant drink. They named this wonderful new drink Buna, which means coffee. The fame of Buna could not be contained. The villagers shared it with their neighbors, who shared it with their neighbors. Traders carried the precious beans along ancient routes, and the knowledge of how to prepare the drink traveled with them, from village to city and across the seas. Now, coffee is enjoyed by people all over the world. And to this day, Ethiopia produces more coffee than any other country in Africa. In a beautiful tribute to its ancient origins, much of the coffee there is still produced in the traditional manner Kaldi would recognize, with beans carefully cultivated, harvested, and dried by hand, preserving the secret first discovered by a young boy and his dancing goats.